this conversation today is going to be about two very different opportunities in travel. Kar Ling represents serviced residential, and Deepak represents luxury hospitality. But what they have in common is they have both achieved really great success by taking calculated risks to innovate. So Kar Ling and Deepak, thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah. Kar Ling, I'd like to start with you, please. So Ascott, you have the Ascott branded properties, and so there's about 80 of them open in the pipeline, about 17,000 units, and then you have in the larger organization close to 1,000 properties open in the pipeline, so nearly 170,000 units. And I think I'd like to start about demand, because one of the themes we've been talking about at Skift Asia Forum is like, how are things in Southeast Asia specifically? Are some markets weaker or some markets stronger?
Yeah. So, Sean, if you don't mind, Ascott is more than just a service resident today.
Yes.
So we started, as a service resident owner-operator about 41 years ago. And across, the past 40 years, we have evolved into what we call global living. Very much, having, the living solutions, to our guests, whether they are staying, with us, for the short term or the long term, whether is it, for leisure or corporate, whether are they on their own or with their families. So I think across, that 40 years, we have very much, evolved, from being just a pure service resident. So I think going back to your questions, about the Southeast Asia region, I think Southeast Asia is a very diverse, region. And clearly, in today's, market, there's a lot of uncertainty. But I think if you go back, to the fundamentals, of the Southeast Asia region, it is actually a very robust, market. So I think, what we are seeing today, is the Chinese, have not come back. And we are certainly, tapping on other geosource, very much, the India, the Korea, the Middle East market to be filling, the demand. So if you look across, the different region, if you take Thailand as an example, and I think Thailand had a good start, and when they had the kidnap situation, that really impacted, the Chinese geosource, and of course, with the earthquake, the market, is, a little bit soft, but I think Thailand has always been a very resilient market because of its own very rich cultural, stand. So we believe, that the market will pick up very quickly. So again, if you look at it as a whole, while we don't see the Chinese coming back, but we do see good, geosource market coming in, but there's still quite a fair bit of uncertainty overhang given what is happening in the broader market.
Wonderful. We heard earlier today from the Chief Business Officer of Airbnb. He talked about the potential of experiences and how important that is. When you talk about global living, why is it that Ascott has made this shift and made that important?
Yeah, I think, when we started, we started with one property in Singapore, as an owner-operator. And very much we realized, that our growth is constrained by our balance sheet as an owner-operator, right? So this is where we began to shift into the asset-light model, where we are, managing properties on behalf, of owner-developer with one of our brands. So that shift allowed us to scale a lot faster. And as we scale, we also realized, that the consumer trend has evolved. And also, the addressable market, for service resident is, pretty small. So we took, a very deliberate stand, that if we want to be pivoting, from a pure long stay, how should we be playing? We certainly don't want to jump into the swim lanes, of the big boys, where they are very, established in the market. So we started, with asking ourselves, what exactly are our guests looking for? They are looking for a home away from home, a living solution. So this is, where we were very deliberate in moving into what we call a global living, providing living solutions, for guests, who wants to be staying with us for the short or long, whether for corporate or for leisure. And very much, if you look at, our product, we actually, for service resident, you come in with your in-room kitchenette, and your washer dryer. And typically you would think that's for long stay, but actually it's also very good for leisure and family. As a mom, when I travel, when my kids are young, you wanted to have access, to some, cooking facilities, even when you're traveling for leisure. So the product actually could suit, all types of purpose of stay. So we have actually started, evolving our product, that a building doesn't just have to be purely, hotels or service resident. We started mixing the room inventory types, as well as the facilities, really going back to basic as to what is that location demand drivers, what type of profile of guests would want to be coming here, and then, we work with our owners, to really design and make sure we have the right room mix, and the right facilities to be, capturing, that demand. So this is very much, our evolution.
Cool. And one more question. So about, on Tuesday, you officially launched Ascott Accelerate. This is something you've championed for some time.
Yes.
What is it?
Yes, I'm very passionate, about people, right? If we look at our growth, we have announced a growth target of 500 million of fee revenue by 2028. That will equate to, us opening more than 300 properties, up to 2028, right? So the big question for us is, where do we find the property leaders, And for those who are in the industry, the challenges, in trying to attract and retain talent. So that brought us, to develop a very structured leadership development program. I was just in Penang yesterday launching it, which we call Ascott Accelerate, which is really about providing a structured career pathway, for aspiring resident manager or general managers. And couple that, with a hybrid learning platform, and also, with access to mentors, to really groom our next generation of leaders. So we're very excited to launch it. We will, be looking, at very much also using that, as employer branding to go out to the market to be attracting talents.
So Deepak, thanks for your patience there. So Deepak, in 2006, opened Labua Hotels as a vertical destination. He led it through 2023. He has since created a consultancy, Luxury Atelier Maison Happiness. He recently published a book. It's Not a Bridge Too Far, which is a mix of memoir and business strategy, which I read on the plane here, and I highly recommend it. So no one I can think of knows luxury hospitality, probably as well as you do. And when I talk to hotel companies, so many of them want to get into experiential hospitality, but they seem to stumble in connecting with today's customer. What is the missing ingredient?
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Kar Ling, and good afternoon to all of you. Actually, this is my first Skift conference, and I'm very humble and honored that I'm on the stage. So I really appreciate that to begin with. Luxury has many definitions. And when I started talking about luxury, and if you go to Maison, at that point of time, there were 10 books available. Today, there are more than 3,000 books available on luxury, and each having a very different definition. And when each having different definition, there are 187,000 hotels in the world. Each 187,000 hotels, out of that 30% which is on the luxury platform, or they call themselves luxury platform, they try to do things in a different manner. But everyone forgets that luxury is, the new economy for luxury is experience. And how do you create that experience? We all trying to do the same thing, but the last mile is we are missing. Because we all talk about experience, we all talk about Instagrammable stories, we all talk about the customer coming in, and we look at the customers coming in. Because there's no choice that is available, okay? Because you have to revolve. But if we look carefully, that the customer is looking for something different. The first thing, if you ask the customer in luxury, what do you want? They want space. Why would Airbnb come out of nowhere and become a market leader if there was no gap in this industry? The reason that gap in the industry was that we were not giving that space to the people. Second part, why people like Airbnb? Of course, Airbnb today is changing with their new launch, which I saw today morning. But the fact is, we are not looking among hospitality at the food and beverage or wellness experience. Opening a spa, we think we have done wellness. Opening a restaurant, we said, we have opened a restaurant. But how many of the hotel restaurants are actually a destination?
A lot of hotel general managers, like they think of F&B as sort of like it's someone else's job. It's not that interesting. And you believe it's like core to, you use the language experience economy, is that right?
So I will, sometimes I was told just before coming to the panel that, this is Skift conference. You talk qualitatively, but you should give quantitative examples. So I want to ask that this is the Skift report. Top 5 hospitality CEOs, combined salary, how much it is? Anybody has any idea? Any guess? 136 point something. Now, top 5 food and beverage companies in the world. You have the figure in front of you. You see the difference.
Can bring the slide up, yes.
The second reason why we are not looking at luxury, how many of you have phone in your hands? All of us. Okay, so how many of you have coffee in your hand? 1, 2, 3, after lunch. And if you read the latest Fortune, the top paid CEOs, the second highest paid CEO in the world is in coffee business. But when it comes to hospitality, we let food and beverage on the side. Until yesterday, we are talking about RevPAR. And why we are not looking at 40% of the unused revenue or underutilized revenue that we are not looking at. Pick up SEC has, the reports have come with the CEO salaries and the whole annual report. Look at the food and beverage revenue compared to the room revenue. And that is why these technology companies are perfecting the art of hospitality. They're not the hospitality companies in technology. They're technology company which is perfecting the art of the hospitality because we do not understand what we need to do. And luxury is very simple. Actually very simple. And as a human being, we don't want to do simpler things. It is below our dignity. I don't want to do a simple thing. If I go to, I started my business. First 6 months were very difficult. Went to the individual owner and they said, no, F&B, you go and talk to my F&B manager, or you go and talk to the restaurant manager. Suddenly, our company is working with listed entities, listed in the Australian Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, and Stock Exchange of Thailand, and the whole outlook is very different. The whole outlook that how much money can be made out of that. The topmost crossing restaurant in the world does $49.1 million. So I think there's a huge opportunity in experience economy. And experience economy is not only food and beverage. It is a wellness. It is how you greet the guest. There was a MX research which was released. It said the best hospitality service experience is in the cruise lines. Not in banking, not in hotels, not in restaurants, not in airlines. Can anybody answer why cruise lines?
Capture audience.
Captured audience, yes.
They understood, because they are far away from everywhere, they understood that they cannot 100% satisfy their customer. So it is called processes. If you have noticed the first slide, the case study was published by Harvard Business. What is processes? They said, there's no way in the world, unless your name is Copperfield, that you can satisfy the customer 100%. So what to do? So they said embarkation, in between we'll do a great show, and disembarkation. And they have more than 90% satisfaction. And the way they calculate 90% satisfaction, if the same matrix is used, the topmost hotel in service standard is not even 60%. What we do is, 10 guests have said excellent, we calculate on an Excel sheet and go back and tell our boss, 100% satisfaction, sir. We are not looking at the opportunity we are missing. I'm sorry, I've taken a lot of time.
No, that's good. You're good.
I have a different view on F&B. I think traditionally as an industry, we tend to
We call it experience economy.
It is still experience economy, but very much, is, looking at it from the industry lens, right? Because what is F&B? Ultimately, it is about also an experience. And in today's, world, do we really need to have traditional, an all-day dining, restaurant in the property setting? It really depends on the location. Because now with delivery, and the abundance of ready to cook and ready to eat. And this is also where, we think our product, is very differentiated because we enable, our guests to have their own personalized, F&B experience. Whether they can choose to go down, to the restaurant to eat, or they can actually be calling the delivery, from, I want to have, this and this and this from, stores all across, the different parts, of the city. And I could actually be facilitating and telling them where they could be getting, their ready to eat and ready to cook, and have their own little party in the room. So I think, to a certain extent, we have to really look at the F&B experience, from, again, the guest point of view. And again, I'm talking more from one that you don't have that meetings and facilities. When you have a meeting facilities, is a different game altogether. But if you're having, just a pure, largely rooms, the question is, do you really need to have F&B? We are very boxed into what is within, but, with technology and apps, we have to start bringing what is outside the community in. And I think this is what the guests are looking for. Instead of me, going through the traffic to be eating, this, wonton noodles, or something special that is famous, I can actually be grabbing and calling them into my room. So I think we had to really, look at F&B differently depending on the location and on the product. But it's still back to experience.
And so, Kar Ling, do you feel like when we heard earlier today, Airbnb wants to get into this and they believe that they can do these services a la carte? And so if you're staying in a place, do you feel like Ascott, when it does this, it helps protect itself against competitors like Airbnb?
No, I think we work with partners,
Okay.
So we're not in the business of, building that whole technology enablement. So a lot of it is, our mandate is making sure that our guests, have, the experience, have a good stay with us, and have a memorable experience. And we want to be working with partners, that will enable, the fulfillment of that, experience.
So Deepak, I had a question on a different topic. So there are some people in this audience who are smarter than me who think that destinations, it's a mistake for them to pay Michelin to come in and review hotels and restaurants. And there's some markets in the US and elsewhere that have sort of said no, some have said yes. What has the experience been in Thailand for having invited Michelin in? Has it been a good thing?
I think Michelin is quite well known when it comes to increasing revenue in US and in Asia also. It's a thumb rule. If you get 1 Michelin star, 25% of your revenue goes up. If you get 2 Michelin star, 50% of your revenue goes up, plus 20% of your ADR goes up. If you get 3 Michelin star, is how you integrate your restaurant with your consumer, you are 60 to 70% higher in ADR. I give an example. I can give an example. I'll give 2 examples, one in Asia and one in US. In US, there's a luxury hotel. The minimum room size is 46 square meter in the heart of Washington, D.C., where you come from. On the average day is $600 to $700 is the ADR.
I think we have a slide for this, yes. Mm-hmm.
There's 90 minutes away, north of Virginia, there's a restaurant with a 28 square meter room. You can't get that room. The rate is $1,260. See the difference. And it is a 3-star, 28 square meter room. If you look at their bigger size room, it goes to $3,000. And you can't get a room. The point is you just can't, and there's nothing. People go there to eat. So I'll say one more thing. 80% of the hotels, when we are building, we look for location. And 90% of successful restaurants create locations. That's the difference.
That is the difference. That's a strategic lesson that hotel operators should learn if they're tapping into the experience economy, creating a destination, just like Wabua was a vertical destination. For time, I do want to say for Kar Ling, you led M&A, that sits with you as a chief strategy officer, and you led this very important acquisition of Oakwood. You, in your previous life, you were involved in the integration between Starwood and Marriott's for Asia Pacific properties. There are people in the audience who might like to get acquired by Ascott. So what kind of criteria are you looking for?
Thanks, Sean. You make my job easier, from the hunting perspective. I think for us, when we look at M&A on the inorganic side, is actually, very much, a very simple question we ask ourselves. if you look at, the map and where our presence, versus our competitor and the addressable market, there are obvious gaps. Gaps, that we want to be, much bigger in Europe. We're very strong in Southeast Asia. We certainly need to dial up, in Europe and also in the Middle East, India market. US is a tough market, so we're still having a question mark about the US. So in terms of hunting, we want to be hunting, for opportunities from a geographical lens. However, we also want to look at it, from a product perspective. So we started off as a service resident, and we have evolved ourselves, to be very much, catering, for all purpose of stay. But one, is we could continue growing organically, but I think M&A will help to accelerate that. So when we look at that, we certainly will want to be acquiring resorts. Yes, if there's any, of resort players here who, want to look, for, to latch onto a bigger platform, we'll be happy to talk. But I think a resort is important, space, that we are in, but I think an M&A will help to accelerate that. Also for a very simple reason, that from a loyalty program perspective, a lot of our, a lot of the loyalty members, they earn the points, when they are working, for corporate, but they want to burn for leisure. So if we don't have a good burn platform, we may not be able to retain. So I think, aside, from a product, there is also other strategic rationale why we want to be really dialing up on our resort M&A.
That's great. So you have more resort product, you'll be able to keep people within.
Yes, and also experiential.
And it's very experiential.
I want to add here.
Yes.
All those companies which are single brand, please don't get disheartened, because we in hospitality are not innovative. We have learned from airlines, we have learned from luxury brands. Hermes, as a single brand, has a higher market cap than LVMH with 48 brands. So stay focused, try to do simpler things. And when we try to do simpler things, we have perfected the art of perfection.
I want to counter that, right?
Yes.
I think, hospitality is a skill game. Very much, a dollar that you spend on the marketing certainly carry a lot more, mileage. When you have, that offering. So I think when you are single, you miss out on the whole synergies, from a bigger platform, from all aspects. Whether are you, buying chairs or are you, your dollar of marketing can only carry you so far. So
I will counter that point by saying...
I think we are running out of time.
By saying I have 17 seconds. The whole market is about collaboration. We have got OTAs. Okay, many hotel companies got together and they wanted to defeat the OTAs. You can't. You have got Booking, Booking.com, you got Agoda, you got Expedia. So do collaborations. And as a single brand, we all can survive. Thank you so much.
Collaboration at scale. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Deepak and Kar Ling.
Thank you.